Hi, I'm Lynette and welcome. Today I'm going to be sharing with you if I had to declutter one eyeshadow palette from each brand, which unlucky bastard would it be? If you like these types of videos, then please consider subscribing because I'm here with makeup hauls, swatches, tutorials, and reviews every Saturday. So let's get into it. So I recently did a video, a tag video created by Betty Jean called If I Could Only Keep One Eyeshadow Palette from Each Brand. And if you missed that video, no worries, I will link it here for your viewing pleasure. I don't know if she's responsible for the idea for this video as well, but it seemed like the logical next step. So here I am, and I'm going to talk about the one palette I would get rid of if I had to get rid of one from each brand. Now, similarly, just as in the last video, I chose brands from which I have 3 or more palettes. So let's roll up the sleeves and get started. Starting with ColourPop, I'm just picking from what's right in front of me. This one was difficult because there were a couple I felt like I could have gotten rid of, I could get rid of, but I decided to settle on the Perception palette. This is an old palette. This was their collaboration with Makeup Shayla, and so pretty. The packaging is so pretty. It feels nice and weighty. And then the palette itself is just really, the color story is really pretty, really well-rounded. And I like everything in it. I like everything about this palette. I like all of the shadows and the shades that they selected for it. But I just never use it. I did use it a couple of times, and I even filmed at least one tutorial with it. But yeah, it's just a palette I just never reach for anymore. And I have a few like that from ColourPop, but if I had to get rid of one, it would have to be this one. Moving right along, we have Pat McGrath. Let's just get Pat McGrath out of the way. If you are familiar with me, if you've been here before, then you already know which palette this is. It's one of her quads, and it's the Ritualistic Rose Quad. And this one is just, I don't even know. I still don't know to this day why I bought this palette. I think this was early on, you know, when Pat McGrath, early in the Pat McGrath mania. And I knew then when I bought it that it's not really my color story. But yeah, I bought it because I love Pat McGrath eyeshadows. It's got 2 special shades in it. And yeah, I used it, ended up, not initially, but I ended up with a really pretty look because the shadows are gorgeous, but it's just not not a palette I ever reach for or think about. So this one was really easy. Ritualistic Rose would bite the dust. Then from Ace Beauté, this was easy too. This video might have been a little easier than the last one. From Ace Beauté, it is the Flare palette. I know there are a lot of people, this is their favorite palette from Ace Beauté, and I cannot get into it. I just can't. I just can't. And I think I did a look with it. I think I did, and I think I had to force myself to do it. I think, yeah, I did do a look. I had to force myself to use it, and I wasn't crazy about the look I came up with. And yeah, this shade that looks so vibrant in the pan just didn't look as vibrant on my skin. And this shade here, these are the only 2 that really interest me. This shade here, I don't recall it being anything special. So yeah, this one, you know, I decluttered my collection, my eyeshadow palette collection this year, and it's still here because I just don't feel like breaking up the family, but she can go. She can go. Anastasia Beverly Hills. This was easy too. This is the Master Palette by Mario. Another really, really old palette. And it was Anastasia's collaboration with Kim K's makeup artist. He has his own brand now, Makeup by Mario. And this for me is just, it was a snooze fest then, it's a snooze fest now. These shadows are super powdery, really soft, and I just, no, absolutely not. You can go. There's the door. I didn't declutter it because, I feel like everybody wanted it, and so it's in here, it's in my drawers, but I don't use it, and I don't see myself ever using it. Next up, from Too Faced. This was a little more difficult because I do have the original chocolate bar palette still that I don't use, but that's in the makeup museum, and I can remember I loved that palette. Used it a lot, but I didn't have a lot of palettes back then. So this one, it had to be this one, and it's the chocolate gold palette. And this is a palette that I think is really, really pretty. It still smells like chocolate. And I think I've dipped in and I've used maybe 1 or 2 shadows in it, maybe. But I don't think I know, I've never done a full look with it. And I don't know, it is a palette that I pined for for over a year, I think it was. It took me a really long time to finally buy it. And then once I bought it, I've swatched it a couple of times, but I just never feel inspired to use it. And now I never even think to use it. So yeah, this one was kind of easy. I would get rid of this if I had to. And then from Juvia's Place, this was really, really easy. If you've been here and you know me, you know what this palette is. It's the Warrior 3. I only bought this palette for these 3 shadows right here. And in my recent declutter, I would have decluttered this palette had I not just used that shade right there, which is this beautiful like blue-gray. Beautiful. Otherwise, this palette would have been out the door. And I still think at some point I'm probably going to just depot these 3 shades if I can. And then I'm just going to get rid of the rest of it because I have all the rest of it, similar shades in other Juvia's Place palettes. So yeah, this one, Babiatch, she could go. From Urban Decay, a lot of the palettes I have from Urban Decay are old because they just have not put out anything recently that I have had any interest in. So I had to go into the makeup museum and dust off the Vice 2 palette. I have the Vice 3 palette too, so it was between those two. And the Vice 2 would get the boot because I just feel like, I have all these shadows now in other palettes that in better formulas, and yeah, I don't use this anymore. So I just keep it around again for it's vintage makeup. That's why I keep it. I love the packaging. So yeah, if I had to get rid of one, she could go. She could go. Next up, from Give Me Glow Cosmetics. This one was sort of kind of easy. I have a few palettes from them, and I don't know, something about this palette, I just can't get into it. And it's the Christmas Morning palette. And I believe I know I've done a tutorial with this palette. And I think it's a pretty palette. I really, really do. I don't know. I cannot get into this palette. I never. And even when I did the tutorial, I kind of had to force myself to do it, to use it. This shade is really beautiful. And I think I recently forced myself to, I think last year I forced myself to use this palette. And I used these 2 right here. And they're beautiful. The metallics are gorgeous. And yeah, I don't know what it is. I think the color story for me, they just don't all go together. So when I look at it, these two, yes, these two, and these two, but to try to do any kind of look with just the palette, just, I mean, I could, but it's just, I'm not inspired. I'm just not inspired with this palette. So if I had to get rid of one, she would go. Next up from BH Cosmetics. This one was sort of kind of easy. This is a palette I recently found at TJ Maxx. I think it was last year. And I knew when I bought it then that I probably shouldn't, but it was on sale. Well, it wasn't on sale. It was like $8 at TJ Maxx. And it's a really, really pretty palette. I just knew that I probably wouldn't get a lot of use out of it, and I have it. And it's the Zodiac Love Signs palette. Now, if you saw the original video I did of this, where I keep one palette, spoiler alert, the original Zodiac is the one that I chose to keep, and this one would be the one that I would get rid of. I mean, just for no good reason, just because I just don't use it. I used it once. It's beautiful. The formula is really, really beautiful, consistent with the original Zodiac palette. Nothing wrong with this palette. Nothing. I don't even know why I don't reach for it, but I just don't. I think maybe because it just has a lot of these rosy tones in it, and I don't know. I don't know why I don't reach for it. I just don't. She's beautiful, but if I had to get rid of one, she'd be the one I get rid of. Moving right along to Natasha Denona. This was easy. The Mini Love palette. I have 3 of her mini palettes, and I have her glam palette, and this is just I used it once. I think I might have done a tutorial with it, and this frustrated the hell out of me. This shadow right here, I was expecting it to do so much more, and it's really just like a topper shade, and that really pissed me the hell off. And yeah, I'm not impressed with the quality of this eyeshadow formula in this palette. And yeah, so yeah, by biatch, she would have to go. No, yeah, easy. From Sigma, I only have 3 palettes from Sigma. I think they're all really beautiful. This was kind of difficult, but if I had to get rid of one of them, it would be the Enchanted palette. Look how gorgeous this packaging is. Oh! And then the inside sleeve, just so pretty. And then this is the color story. Look at the beautiful color story. This cool tone, soft, mauve color story with this deep green. I mean, just really, really pretty. But, the other 2 palettes, the Corda Rosa, which I like, a nice warm peachy type palette, coral palette. And then I forgot what the other one is called. It's like this grungy, smoky palette. So yeah, of the 3, this one would have to go. But this one is beautiful too. And yeah, I would begrudgingly let her go. But I would let her go. And then from Beauty Bay, I like me some Beauty Bay palettes. But if I had to get rid of one of them, this one, it came down between the Fiery palette, which is a warm tone palette, and the Nude palette, which is a cool tone nude palette and neutral palette. And between the 2, the cool tone neutral palette won out. So I would get rid of the Fiery palette. It's pretty. I mean, it's pretty. But I just like these really like reddish type shades here. I just don't really go for. Yeah, I don't really go for it. So if I had to get rid of one, I would feel okay with letting this one go. Nice formula. I can say of all the Beauty Bay palettes I have from them, the formula is consistent amongst all of them. So absolutely nothing wrong with this palette. And the color story is beautiful too. Just, I mean, if I was forced to give up one, this would have to be the one to go. From Viseart, this one was difficult because I love me some Viseart eyeshadows, and I have quite a few Viseart palettes. But if I had to get rid of one, it would be the very first palette I ever purchased from them, and that is the Dark Mattes palette. I know, but I never reach for this palette. I just never reach for this palette. And it's got, you know, all the dark matte staples that you could want or need for any eyeshadow look, all right here in the fantastic, unrivaled Viseart matte formula. But I just, yeah, from the time that I've gotten it, I think, I just don't reach for this palette ever. Ever. So, she'd have to go. And then from Adept Cosmetics, I only have 3 palettes from Adept. And so, I don't know. I kind of felt like this one was an easy one for me. Don't get me wrong, I like all of my palettes from Adept. I think their shadows are beautiful. You know, they do a lot of dual chromes. They have some multi-chromes. But if I had to get rid of the one, I can't see myself getting rid of my Kodan palette. Like, that's a no. And then the new, well, not new, it's new to me, the Amunet New palette. Kind of really digging that one. So the one that I don't find myself wanting to reach for or really think about too often is the original Plain Jane palette. I believe this one has been discontinued. They have remastered it now, and that one's available. So yeah, this is the one I would get rid of. I know, and you're looking at it like, what? But yeah, I mean, it's pretty. It's beautiful. But, you know, I have, at this point, I feel like I have a healthy collection of duochrome and multichrome eyeshadows now from a lot of indie brands. And so, yeah, I really don't think I would miss this one if I had to get rid of it. So, yeah, Plain Jane. She'd be a goner. And then last but not least, that was fast. I probably forgot about some brands. Oh, no, not last. 2 more to go. Forgot about this one. From Melt Cosmetics. This is the very first, these are the very first shadows I ever purchased from Melt. This is before they started doing eyeshadow palettes, and they were just doing stacks. And when this stack was about to launch, I was crazy, like, must have it. And I went and got it, and then didn't really like it so much. Which stack am I speaking of? This would be the gunmetal stack. This, yeah, now, this was early in my makeup journey, right? Because this color story is still to this day right up my alley. Oh, and one of them just fell out. The gunmetal shade just fell out. One moment, please. Okay, so I was able to get it back in the pan. I'm going to have to get some alcohol though and repress it, but that's what that shade looks like. And the reason why I didn't love this palette, this stack, when I did get my hands on it, paid a lot of money for it because they're not cheap, is because, that's the last shade, is because the shimmers are very crumbly, as you just saw, very, very crumbly, and the matte shades were just like, this one matte shade was just way deeper. Once I put it on my eye and blended it out, way deeper than I expected it to be. Like, it's much deeper than it looks in the pan. And I just came out with a really, really dark look. I wasn't crazy about this shade either. It only has one matte shade, right? Did I say this is the only matte shade? And it's a 4-pan stack. And yeah, I was not in love. Now, because it was so early in my makeup journey and I didn't have a lot of experience with eyeshadows, and Melt, in my opinion, is not a brand, a formula that is great for beginners. I think they've definitely come a long way. Their last couple of releases, especially the She's in Parties palette, beautiful, easy to blend, the whole 9 yards. But yeah, for the most part, I don't find them to be the easiest to work with if you're a beginner, which is what I was. So yeah, I didn't love this stack, but knowing that, I have kept it around because you know, the color story is really, really pretty, very, very grungy. And I would like to, now that I have more experience working with eyeshadows and working with Melt eyeshadows, I would like to go back and use this again, and just to see if, you know, I like it any better. So I'm going to set this aside because I need to repress it. And yeah, so if I had to get rid of one of my Melt shadows palettes, it would definitely be the gunmetal stack. I wonder if they're going to make it into a conventional palette, because they've been doing that over the years with their other stacks. And yeah, so I wonder if they'll do that. And I would even consider buying it if they did. They added some more toned shadows to it, like they've done with the other stacks, and put these original shades in it. You know, it's something that I would even consider. But yeah, if I had to get rid of one though, for right now today, she would go. She'd be the one to go. And then last but not least, from Be Perfect Cosmetics, I only have 3 palettes from them, and they're all from the Carnival collection. And I really like all of them. I really wouldn't want to part with any of them. But if I had to, that's what this video is about. If I had to, it would be the Carnival 3 Tahiti palette. And only because it's a very, I mean, well, 1/3 of it. So I shouldn't say it's a purple heavy palette. But this 3 rows here of purples and pinks, like, you know, I have already. These greens are beautiful, of course. And then these neutral, like this whole section here, you know, it's fine. The formula, you know, there's nothing wrong with it. The formula is really, really nice. I've done a look with this palette. I've used other shadows in combination with other palettes from here. So yeah, I like the palette. But you know, if I had to get rid of one of them, this one would be the one to go. Let me know in the comments below if you were forced to get rid of one palette from each of your brands. Which one would it be? If you liked this video, please give it a like and consider subscribing. I want to thank you for joining me today. I hope to see you again next week. Until then, bye-bye.